Alright everyone, so in this video here, Sony has basically officially announced the PlayStation 5 Pro. So this is going to be like a nice little summary here. Upgraded GPU, 67% more compute units, 28% faster memory. That has to do with the RAM. 45% rendering for gameplay, advanced ray tracing, AI upscaling, 2TB SSD, Wi-Fi 7. Now keep in mind, the PS5 Pro, when you buy the system itself, it's strictly a digital system. There's not going to be another SKU where they include the disk drive. That is strictly going to be sold separately. So if you are wanting the disk drive, that's going to be an additional $80. So you're at $180. And let's just say, you add taxes, you're looking about $800. So this is going to be a hard sell, if I'm going to be honest with you. And I've watched the videos from Sony, and one thing I will say is the video they used to explain the benefits for the PS5 Pro, it did not do it. It was actually not that good, if I'm being honest with you. Now, I understand what Sony's trying to do with this, but the problem going into this is that, I'm just going to say this, is that games now, for the most part, now, who knows what will happen in the next 5-10 years in terms of graphics when it comes to games. But honestly, right now, the games themselves looks really, really good. And, whether you're playing on PS5, Xbox Series, even on PC. We're going to ignore the Switch because Nintendo really, really does need a Switch successor at this point. But if we're talking about the current games from these consoles, for the most part, they all look really, really good. And the problem is that you're at this point where you have this diminishing value when it comes to more powerful hardware. And especially when you do like a mid-gen upgrade of like a Pro model. And man, one thing I will say is this reception, this basically what people are saying about this is like, it's too expensive, there's no disk drive. Sony seems like they're nickel and diming everyone, which, just on the side note, Sony has also raised the prices of those DualSense controllers by $5. So if you've been holding off on buying another DualSense controller, well, guess what? You're going to be paying an extra $5 for that. Now, I did read that part of the reason why for the price hike is because they're using better batteries now, that the battery life will last longer, but I don't know how true that is. I don't know how much of a difference that makes. All I know is they're $5 more now. And man, one thing I will say is, just imagine if Sony did not even include the controllers, like that was a separate purchase. Just imagine if that was the case. Holy crap. People are already complaining that there's no disk drive. You have to buy separately. There's no vertical stand for it. You have to buy that separately. Size-wise, this is supposed to be about the same size as the original launch model of the PS5. Because the PS5 Slim is slightly smaller. However, if you want to lay this on its side, is gonna be the same BS crap as the PS5 Slim. You get those little plastic little feet things that you have to like jam it in its holes, and then you lay it on its side. And because it's the digital model, well, guess what? Only 3 points of it actually touches the surface it's sitting on. So in the corner right over here, if you press it down from the top, guess what? It's gonna tilt over. So yeah, that's a brilliant design. I don't know why they couldn't just make it like a normal box, honestly, but it is what it is. But yeah, $700. Yeah, the games look slightly better, but not that much. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that when they were comparing the games and comparing, what would be like playing on PS5 Pro versus the PS5, whether it's in performance mode or fidelity mode, it's not that big of a difference. And the average person playing games on a console isn't really going to be able to tell the difference. And I'm just going to say this too. If you already have a PS5 or even a Xbox Series console, use the money that you would pay for a PS5 Pro and use it towards a newer TV with variable refresh rate, because that is a bigger game changer than all of this stuff here. Or you could use the $700 to get yourself maybe even like a decent PC for that price, though I would spend a little bit more than that on a PC. But the advantage of it is that PC's upgradable, it's on PC. There are certainly a lot more games available on PC, and in a lot of cases they're even cheaper. And even if you get something like a ROG Ally, this is the ROG Ally X, but say for example, you don't have a lot of money, but you want a game on PC, download the Epic Games Store launcher and claim the free games. They actually have decent games that you can claim for free. And I have like over 200-300 games at this point through Epic Games, and 99% of it I got it for free. So, and because I'm PC, I can literally just crank all the settings up and get a better experience that way. So I think that's the big thing with this, is that, and here's another thing too, is I think some people are just not realizing, is that Sony is probably testing the waters of whenever they release a PlayStation 6 and how expensive they can even go, and even if they still want to do physical media. I think this is more of a test, because if you have to understand too, is that sometimes these console manufacturers will come out with certain SKUs that doesn't really make sense, or is like why they're making these choices. But when you look back and look at those, it's like, yeah, that actually makes sense why they did that. So let's take a look at Xbox for a moment. So during the Xbox One generation, there was a particular version of the Xbox One that is the what a lot of people call the SAD edition. Basically, is the Xbox One, the discless digital only version of the Xbox One, which was basically the Xbox One S without a disc drive. Yeah, it wasn't really a big seller, but it was also Microsoft testing the waters to see if people would actually buy a Xbox without a disk drive. And I'm pretty sure even when that came out, Sony was looking at it and they were probably thinking, it's like, can we design a console where we can have a version without a disk drive? And now we're at the PS5. And I think with the PS5 Pro coming out of one SKU without a disk drive, the disk drive is optional. You can't spend the $80 and slap it on the side. But I think this is Sony doing two major things. One is coming out with a more powerful console. Putting that in quotes because I'll let Digital Foundry figure that part out if it is actually a meaningful upgrade. And two, it's Sony testing the waters for a PlayStation 6 if they can get away with no physical media, strictly digital, and charging a higher price. Maybe starting at $700. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But one thing I do know is I do not think this is going to be a big seller. I think this is going to be a very niche console. And I don't know. It's certainly not for me, but I don't think this is going to be a big seller. I think the initial wave of consoles at launch would sell out, but I think after the second and third shipments, after the system's been out for a while, I think they're going to sit on store shelves, and I don't think people are going to be clamoring on them. Could be wrong, who knows? But all I know is $700 for a piece of box. That's kind of asking a lot, if I'm being quite honest with you. And yeah, I know some people say it's like, well, I mean, PC gamers would spend more money on the PC. Well, guess what? You can do more on PC. And, you know, depending on what you use it for, it can also be a daily thing. Whereas, you know, like a PS5 Pro, for a lot of people, it might be like a couple times a week only. So we'll wait and see what happens. I will actually be interested in how well this thing sells. But I would be more interested to see how much of a real world performance gain that you actually do get on PS5 Pro. So we'll wait and see. It's certainly not for me, and I think a lot of people, and I'll be honest with you, based on what people's been talking about online, it is certainly not going well. But here's the thing too. Yes, I get what like Destiny FOMO is talking about. People are upset about the PS5 Pro pricing. My 49 graphics card for my PC is more than double the cost of the PS5 Pro. Console players want PC graphics for $500. Not happening. Well, here's the thing: is that you can use a high-end PC for more than just gaming. You know, you can use the 4090 for more than gaming. You can use it for like video editing or, you know, professional software and stuff. You know, a lot of the high-end professional softwares would use graphics cards to help with rendering times and stuff like that. So there are other use case scenarios. Plus, it's a PC, so you can also game on PC and even get better performance out of it. But there's always going to be a segment of PC players that always gets the high-end stuff for it no object on pricing. But when it comes to the console, and I think my biggest issue with the PS5 Pro is that for, whether you're going from the digital version of the PS5 or the disc version of the PS5 to the PS5 Pro, you're talking about a $200 to $250 upcharge for potential performance gains. So small that most people will be looking at it, it's like it's not worth the extra upcharge for it. Because when you look at the difference between games running on PS5 and PS5 Pro, even if you're putting the game in performance mode on PS5 and comparing it to PS5 Pro, the average person is not really going to be able to tell the difference unless you put it side by side and ask people the difference. But if they're not looking at it side by side, most console players are not going to be able to tell the difference. And I think that's going to be the big thing about it. So and ironically, CNET was really the only ones where they got like exclusive hands-on with it. So here's what they say. PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution will work on PSVR 2 games in the future. Planned 40 to 50 games with PS5 Pro upgrades at launch, focusing on 4K 60 frames per second upgrades along with graphical boost. PS5 Pro could spark a range of extra gaming modes. Okay, so there could be over 25% of PS5 owners own 120 the 120 frames per second capable TVs. Around 1 in 10 players have variable refresh rate TVs. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in particular popped compared or pop that doesn't read right, but anyway, compared to the fuzzier graphics on the existing. Oh, okay, I see what they're saying. So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in particular popped, I guess just meaning that it looked better compared to the fuzzier graphics on existing PS5 version. Everything was sharper and still 60 frames per second smooth. It felt like putting new glasses on. Gran Turismo 7 includes 8K mode and a 4K mode with ray tracing. So the PS5 Pro is actually going to be native 8K supported. It seems like it. Well, I'll just say this. It's not like 8K TV sold well. In fact, a lot of the manufacturers has actually discontinued manufacturing 8K TVs for consumers because no one bought them. Very few people bought 8K TVs. So, just over 25%, so let's just say around 26-27% of PS5 owners owns a 120 hertz television. Around 1 in 10 players have a variable refresh rate TV. So in other words, the PS5 Pro is not going to sell gangbusters for them. I don't know. It's hard for me to justify why people will get the PS5 Pro. And I like how they put planned 40 to 50 games with PS5 Pro upgrades at launch. I don't know. It's going to be a hard sell, if I'm being honest. It's going to be a hard sell. I'll just say that. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Here's my ROG Ally X, and yes, I actually do have some what used to be PS5 exclusive games on this thing. So like Returnal, Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, and stuff like that. So let me just do this real quick. So let me load this up real quick. I had to do the initial thing for the game, but here is a PS5 launch. What's the PS5 launch title? But anyway, here's Ratchet and Clank running on a PC handheld. And I need to get out of that silent mode. That's why I was actually running a little choppy. And yes, this thing does have an SSD in it, of course. And if I change it to full screen, probably should have cleaned the screen. But look, you can see my camera and my ring light and all that fun stuff. So yeah, here's Ratchet and Clank. And now I'm not going to say that this is going to like run drastic, I'm not going to say this is like game changer or anything. What I will say is that but yeah, like I can have this running at 60 frames per second on a portable system. And I think that's something some people don't realize, is that for that kind of money that you would be spending on the PS5 Pro, you can literally get something similar or even a different experience when playing games. So if I go to bestbuy.com, how much was, okay, $800. So for $100 more, you can get a PC handheld, the better version. Or if you don't want the Ally X, for example, well, for $500, oh, this is the non-extreme. You actually want to go with the extreme version. So for $50 less, you can get a ROG Ally and have games portably running Windows on it. Or you can always just get a Steam Deck. So there's quite a bit of options out there that you can get. I think going forward, if I'm being quite honest with you, is not necessarily having a dedicated box always sitting underneath your TV. It's going to be more of these handheld devices that connects to your TV easily. Look at the Switch. You got devices like these, the Steam Deck, the Legion Go. You know, they all have a way to connect it to your TV and play it on your TV if you want to. But, you know, if you go out, if you go on a trip or something, just take it out of the dock or just unplug it from the TV, take it with you and play portably. So it's stuff like this that is making home consoles a harder sell. Because for me personally, I'd rather game on devices like this than on a dedicated box. Now, I do have dedicated boxes to play games. But if, say, like, I only want one device that does everything, honestly, a PC handheld kind of makes more sense. But you are trading, like, you know, the whole graphics and all that. So keep that in mind. But in other words, I would say still just go with a regular PS5 model and then use the $200 to $250 upcharge for like games, accessories, headsets, whatever. I think that is a better route to go than spending $700 on the PS5 Pro. Those are my thoughts, though. What are your thoughts? Leave those comments down below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and like always, have a good one. To me, the PS5 Pro is Sony going back into their old ways from the PS3 generation. Basically, that time frame when Sony felt like they were on top of the world with the PS2, and then being very, very cocky going into PS3. This is what it reminds me of. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong and this thing just sells like gangbusters. Who knows? Anyway, later.